In today's video, we're back with some updated NHL trade rumors. We have all the latest on the Winnipeg Jets, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Vancouver Canucks, and the Florida Panthers. We'll get into all that coming up next. Welcome back to Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So we are now less than 1 week away from the NHL draft, where we're likely going to see a fair bit of activity. At least there's lots of talk. There's all kinds of trade chatter around draft picks and players who might possibly be moved here around the draft. So I do expect that it very well could be a very busy week and weekend coming up here next weekend. So certainly stay tuned to the channel here for all the latest updates as the information becomes available. Today I want to start with the Winnipeg Jets. Now, Jacob Trouba is a player who has been mentioned in trade rumors really for the last couple of years. He seems to be reluctant to sign a long-term deal with the Winnipeg Jets. There's a lot of talk that he didn't want to be there, and now they're at a point where he's 1 year away from unrestricted free agency, and they probably really can't afford him to sign a long-term deal for what he'd be looking for now anyways, given all the other young players around him that have really improved and blossomed here and have earned big raises as well. So it's more than likely, I'd say it's very, very likely that Trouba definitely gets traded, and I would not be shocked to see it happen this week, either before the draft or at the draft. But by the end of next weekend, I would be very surprised if Jacob Trouba is still a member of the Winnipeg Jets. Now, of course, there's plenty of teams that are interested in acquiring his services. I mean, he's a right-shot defenseman. He's young. He has a lot of talent, so it's not a surprise that he would be in high demand. A few teams that have been linked to him lately, of course, there's the Detroit Red Wings connection. He's from Michigan. They have lots of space. They're going through a rebuild. They could use a guy like him. Obviously, if he's willing to agree to a long-term extension with them, that'll increase what the Red Wings would be able to pay. Obviously, they have new general manager Steve Yzerman at the helm there, so we'll see how he handles things. He was known for making some pretty good trades when he was in Tampa. So I guess we'll see, but the Red Wings are certainly a team that's still connected to Trouba, but there's lots of other teams that are linked as well. Many in the eastern region of the U.S., including the Sabres, the Islanders, and the Rangers. All those teams certainly have the cap space, and they certainly have some interesting pieces that the Jets might find intriguing for a return price as well. The Jets are going to more than likely be asking for younger assets, so either prospects or a first-round pick or something to that effect, because they really can't afford to take on much in the way of salary, because not only do they need to trade him, as they likely can't sign him, but they really can't take much back. I mean, between Line and Connor and all these other contracts, and their whole blue line mostly is up for contract renewal here. So they have their own cap problems, and Trouba is not going to be able to return them a roster player likely that's going to help right away. Now, in other news with the Jets, then they're likely going to continue to shed salary outside of Trouba, and one player that's been mentioned here is Matthew Perreault. He's a player who's been quite a bit of a utility player for the Jets, can plan to play up and down the lineup, certainly proven his value at times for sure, but given the state of the younger players in the team and the contracts they need to do, it's likely a contract that they can no longer really afford to carry. So look for them to move Matthew Perreault as well. I don't really have any teams linked to him as of right now, but I'm sure, given the fact that he's doesn't have too crazy of a contract, he's got a lot of good experience, and is like I said, he's the kind of player who can go up and down the lineup. He can play second line, third line, could even move up and play first line at times on a limited basis. So I think Perreault should generate a fair bit of interest, and he's another player that I fully expect the Jets to move here before free agency kicks in. According to NHL insider Pierre LeBrun, the Maple Leafs have been quietly shopping backup goalie Garrett Sparks, and that should not come as a huge surprise. As we saw before heading into the playoffs, Garrett Sparks was pulled from the Leafs lineup. They brought up Hutchinson to be the backup to Freddie Anderson during the playoffs, and Garrett Sparks really didn't see any action with the club for the remainder of the season. He's got 1 year left, only paying him $750K, so there's not a huge deal that way. Obviously, he's still young enough that another team might find potential in him. It's not quite clear what route the Leafs would take. Should they move him, if they try to bring back another goalie in return, or if they go shopping through free agency, or where they're going to find another goalie, because they could decide to re-sign Hutchinson and go that route if they felt comfortable with him as the backup, or they could go in a completely different direction here. But the Leafs are quietly shopping the backup goalie who had a very tough year last year, and we'll see if they find any takers and if there's any deals to be had here for Garrett Sparks. Now, speaking of the Maple Leafs, let's talk about former Maple Leaf goalie James Reimer, who finds himself in a similar situation with the Florida Panthers. Obviously, he's been gone from the Leafs for some time, but of course, things haven't really worked out the best for him in Florida. They got Roberto Luongo there as well, and because of Luongo's contract, he's more likely not going anywhere. And of course, the Panthers seem to be all in going after Bobrovsky and Panarin. So they don't need Bobrovsky, Luongo, and Reimer. That's obvious to everybody here. So more than likely, James Reimer finds himself traded. He doesn't have too crazy of a long-term contract or big money, but based on the money that he has, I think it's less likely that he'd be bought out. I think they would prefer to find a trade to get the full contract off the books. They might have to retain a little bit of salary. It's hard to say. Not sure if that's something they'd be willing to do. Either that or sweeten a deal with another asset. I mean, the Panthers are looking to cut salary to make as much room as they can to go after these big-time free agents. And there's been other names mentioned out there that they could be looking to trade as well. Wouldn't be shocking to see them move another forward. I know we've heard things about maybe Hoffman being traded as well. He's got 1 year left on his contract. Maybe we could see a combo package of guys going out and maybe younger players or less significant contracts coming back or something to that effect. But there's certainly some teams out there who could use a guy like Reimer who's got experience and could be more of a solid backup. Reimer's had to play probably more than they would like him to in the last few years due to Luongo being hurt a lot. So if he can go to a team where he can be a backup goalie and play 20-25 games, that would probably be better suited for him. I know, for example, a team that kind of comes to mind if they don't re-sign Mike Smith would be the Flames. If the Flames decide to go with Riddick and somebody else, maybe they acquire Reimer. Just a thought out there, and not to say for sure that he'd be the only option, because there's a lot of other goalies that they might be able to snag through free agency as well that could possibly do a similar type job and not have to give up an asset to grab them. So I'm not sure where he goes, but the Panthers are certainly more actively trying to shop him here ahead of the free agency window opening up, so they can get that space open to go after all-star goalie Sergei Bobrovsky. Now, of course, there have been some talk online about a potential return to Toronto because Reimer's name's coming up around the same time that we see Sparks being mentioned. But I personally, I think it's probably unlikely, but I guess you just never know. Just for curiosity's sake, especially if you're a Leaf fan, would you be open at all to James Reimer coming back to Toronto to be the backup to Freddie Anderson? I really don't think it's going to happen, but I'm just curious what your thoughts are out there, because I've seen it's something being discussed a fair bit here through social media over the past couple days. Now, staying with the Leafs here and tying into the Vancouver Canucks, agent J.P. Barry, who manages both Tyler Myers and Jake Gardiner, has indicated that he expects to speak with the Canucks about both of his clients here. As we know, the Canucks are certainly appear to be aggressive on changing their blue line here throughout the offseason, and it's been rumored for at least the last few weeks that they more than likely are going to try to sign themselves a pretty decent free agent defenseman to kind of give that blue line a boost back there. And Myers' name has come up as well as Jake Gardiner. Now, it's not a foregone conclusion that both these players leave their existing clubs. It certainly will be tough for the Leafs to keep Gardiner and the Jets to keep Myers due to their cap situations. But there's certainly a lot of things that can change depending on other moves that are being had here. But it certainly appears as though that the Canucks are at least interested. I know they've also been linked to Zaitsev, which I discussed a little bit yesterday, indicating that I really don't know if the interest is real high. The interest is there, but I just don't think it's a big priority for Jim Benning. I think more than likely they try to address this blue line through free agency. And one of these guys very well could help. I mean, Gardiner would be a good puck-moving defenseman for them, but they could certainly use somebody who's a little stronger defensively too. So hard to say which route they go here, but the Canucks are certainly active, looking at the free agent market to add a veteran defenseman, and Myers and Gardiner are certainly two players that are fairly high on their list that they at least want to explore and talk to and see if there's a fit there. So that is all the latest NHL trade and free agent rumors here for today. So certainly stay tuned to Top Shelf Hockey as more information becomes available and we get more of an indication of what a lot of these teams are looking to do as the rumors persist here as we lead into the draft next week. We'll certainly keep you all up to date. So stay tuned for daily content with all the latest. If you're new to the channel, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, subscribe for more content just like this one, and give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.